Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Jessica Ward King, the StigmaCrusher here. So this week I wanted to talk about something that has gotten a lot of press. It's called dissociation, and you may have heard of this back when the movie Sybil came out. Back then it was called multiple personalities disorder. And since then, it has come to be known as dissociative identity disorder. And dissociation is actually a much more broad term that encompasses more things than just dissociative identity disorder or just this multiple personalities disorder. And so I wanted to talk a bit about this dissociation thing. And the reason that I wanted to talk about it is, and I agonized over whether to say this or not, but I will, is that I have had a couple of dissociative episodes this past week. And this is not that uncommon in people with moderate to severe depression. When I say not that uncommon, I mean, it's still uncommon, but it's not unheard of. It's not something that like, oh my goodness, run to the hospital kind of a thing. It's like, oh, that's a new symptom kind of situation. It's something that I will be talking to my doctor about, talking to my psychiatrist about, and exploring and seeing if anything needs to be tweaked. Because while it's not, for me at this point particularly, I was going to say it's not distressing. What I guess I'm trying to get out is that it's not being bothersome. It's not impeding my life. So these episodes have lasted 20 to 30 seconds at most. They have not caused me any strife in my life. They have not happened at times where I have been needing to have my full attention somewhere. Like it hasn't happened, while driving, or it hasn't happened during complex tasks or anything. It's been while brushing my teeth, doing my hair, that kind of thing. And so for me, so far, it's been more of a curiosity, a not particularly pleasant curiosity, and I'll explain in a moment what it is and what it feels like, but not a particularly pleasant curiosity, but more of like a, so this. And because I know what dissociation is, as soon as I had this experience, I was like, oh, this is dissociation. This is what it feels like. Okay, now I get it. Because the kind of dissociation that I've been having is depersonalization, derealization dissociation. And I haven't been having the full disorder, just a couple of episodes of it. Some people have it where they have it for long periods of time, so like way longer than like 20 or 30 seconds, for like minutes or hours at a time, even days, and over long periods of time, like more than, not episodically, but like chronically. So those people would have what we would call depersonalization, derealization disorder. And what this, but what this feels like in general is kind of, depersonalization feels like you're outside of yourself. Like you are not yourself, right? That's that depersonalization. And for me, it really is a feeling like I'm watching myself do these tasks. So like brushing my teeth, doing my hair, watching myself do these things, like almost from a vantage point outside of myself. Not as though I'm two people, not as though I'm like standing over there doing it, but like figuratively, like I'm watching myself do these tasks. And then the derealization is that something doesn't feel quite real. It's almost like things are hazy, things are things are very real. It's almost like a dream state, or it doesn't feel quite real. And I had that experience as well. Sometimes you can have just depersonalization, sometimes you can have just derealization. I actually had them both at the same time. And it kind of felt like things go hazy while I'm watching myself do these tasks. Things go hazy, and I don't feel like it's real, and I don't feel like I'm in a real situation, and it's like it's a dream state. And so this is a disconcerting experience. It's not a comfortable experience. It's not one that I chase after or want to repeat. But like I said, for me, it hasn't been bothersome in the sense that it hasn't actually caused harm to my life. For a lot of people, it causes a lot of harm and a lot of bother to their life, and it's very much diagnosable and very, very harmful disorder. There's another kind of dissociation, which is dissociative amnesia. This one happens a lot in movies as well, where you just have amnesia all of a sudden, either for your whole life or for specific things for a specific period of time, but you just like suddenly have amnesia. And this can go along with sometimes a dissociative fugue, which is when you like run away because of this amnesia. And this is a real thing. It's very harmful to the people that are experiencing it. It is very, very real. It very much does happen. It's not particularly common, right? It's not like people are like left, right, and center, like forgetting their whole lives. It would be more common to be forgetting pieces or snippets or specific portions of or specific types of information. Those things would be more common. It's worth noting that this kind of dissociation is usually a product of trauma. It's not usually something that you have depression and becomes severe depression and you get dissociative amnesia. That's not generally how it works. It would be more often that this would be something that you would have a severe emotional reaction to something and this would result, or something that's traumatic happen and this would result. And then the third kind of dissociation is, as I mentioned at the beginning, dissociative identity disorder. That's the classic multiple personalities disorder. It's not what it says on the tin, okay? So it's not like, at least the current understanding, there's a lot of controversy around dissociative identity disorder. For a while there, people thought it wasn't even real, that people were just malingering or putting it on. There's some consensus now that it is real, but it's not. There is consensus as well that it's not like you have different people inside your head and they come out at different times. That's not generally speaking what the presentation is. Not to say that it couldn't be, but generally speaking, that's not what the presentation is. Generally speaking, it's more like kind of an understanding that there's other consciousness or other ways of being inside you, and they may be more or less in control at different times, but it's much less dramatic, I guess is what I'm saying, than the multiple personalities disorder of yore that we see in the movie Sybil, for example. Now, what does that mean for stories like Sybil's? Does it mean that that was all made up? No, not necessarily. Like I say, it's not in the realm of the impossible that those kinds of presentations could exist. It's just that for the vast majority of people with dissociative identity disorder, that's not the presentation that you're going to see. And so someone could come to you and say, you know, I've been diagnosed with dissociative identity disorder. And you would look at them and say, you're lying. No, you're not. Because their disorder presents in a much more subtle, more nuanced way. And that's okay. So in terms of how many people experience dissociation, it's really unclear. It seems to be that dissociation is much more common than we would care to think. That a lot of people experience dissociation. Some people don't even know it or wouldn't necessarily call it by that name. A lot of people wouldn't kind of tag it with a psychiatric label. There's some indication that between 12 and 14% of psychiatric patients will experience dissociation. But even that, it's difficult to say because some patients would experience dissociation and not know to call it that. So, for example, with my experience, I know to call it that because I know what dissociation is. And then it recurred a second time, and so then I was like, okay, for real. But if I just had that experience one time, I might have just been like, and didn't know, I might have just been like, that was weird, you know? Or, whoa, I just had this weird feeling that everything was not real and I was out of my body. Hey, wife of mine, what do you think of that experience? And she'd say, wow, that's really weird. And we would carry on with our lives. And no one would ever report to the researchers that I had had dissociation. It seems clear that children experience dissociation fairly frequently, but you wouldn't call it by like a psychiatric label because it's a fairly normal experience of childhood. It's particularly typical for children that have experienced any trauma. So, you know, it's probably a fairly common experience of the human condition. And calling things by psychiatric labels is probably not necessarily appropriate when we have something that is such a common condition. However, in a case like mine, where mine seems to me anyway, I will see what the experts say, but it seems to me to be very clearly a symptom of the depression that I'm experiencing. In that case, it does seem to be appropriate to call it by its psychiatric label, because it's going to help to kind of define and put parameters around my disorder and to help guide treatment. And that's what's key. It's going to help to define and guide treatment. And so that's when I think it's appropriate. And of course, it's very appropriate when we're actually defining and diagnosing disorders, like in the case of dissociative amnesia, for example, or dissociative identity disorder. So I can keep you posted as to what goes down with the dissociative symptoms. I'm hoping that they are fleeting and they go away. We'll see. And I can let you know as well what happens with the psychiatrist, what he says about it. And I will keep you posted. I will do an update video shortly and let you know how my experiment with trying to take my mask off at work is going as well. All right, so take care of yourselves this week, everyone. Bye.
StigmaCrusher.